Hello, bienvenido, welcome, konnichiwa.
Xirtus.
Believe it or not, this is not real. Everything you are hearing right now is really a synthetic TensorFlow little sound magic trick today. We are using voice cloning software by Replica Studios and refacing technology by Reface in order to demonstrate the capacity of the illusion and nature of delusion in 2020. I hope you enjoy this experiment. Enjoy, Xirtus. Thank you.
This is our time. Partying is in our blood. We're ready for Oktoberfest.
I dream of Tartaria. So you think you are fresh. You think you are the new Nobu under the sun. You think you are the first piece of sliced bread.
Well, history will tell you different. In fact, most stories are the same story. The same three acts shuffled sometimes. Usually not. They go something like
Man versus man. One versus another, or one versus God and world, Father Time and Mother Nature, one versus themselves.
This episode in Humanity affords us all the opportunity to observe the three acts in various shuffles, over and over again,
both in the story we tell and in ourselves.
And I'm sorry, the parable lacks the Tesla towers and flight machines that you are used to, but please imagine them, because make no mistake, they lie here in our story.
Yes, here is the tale of how the technology was afforded
to the Freemasons that the Jesuits had long reverse engineered themselves,
and the beginning of the battle.
The battle, you say, the Crusades know, for they had finished and left the fair Tartarian lands, and in the hands of pedophiles and witches.
The battle for our minds begins here.
The battle for our souls to be returned because they have been stolen.
The battle to return the technology of Tartaria, but more. The battle for freedom to submit
in a libertine age where the Jesuits crafted the EU of do what thou wilt until you have a sick tummy and ice cream headache, then find yourself in the ancient prostration of Vedic Islam. This tale will be told with a certain orthodox to the parable for the sake of maintaining the Jesuit staging of the event.
Might as well give them the keys to my palace.
However, do your best to imagine it how it really was, laying on top of a former 5G mecca. A history lost, and new men and women's haircuts, and slave daughters' rape-proof trousers tied a gentle gentry corset, laced for the sake of representing the anarchistic transvestite republic, which replaced Tartaria, our fair world.
That which you seek is already within. You have all you need.
Amazing fate, we find ourselves in charge of shaping the new world in our own image. Best we try to do it righteously together. Let us get started. Recent Tartarians. I, Xirtus, hereby invoke the right of the fair use doctrine, which is fundamental to the Uniform Commercial Code and is the law of the United States of America and the European Union of States, which permits limited use of copyrighted material without having to first acquire permission from the copyright holder. Fair use is one of the limitations to copyright, intended to balance the interests of copyright holders with the public interest.
Okay, King Louis's midnight snack.
Well, at least now you're being honest. Before you were working for mankind, and they'll be the last to benefit from this.
Come on, Jane, you know Star Wars is just a fantasy. But I can't do my medical research anywhere else. You know that. I can't stop now.
Let me see if I've got this straight. You have them blow up the world, and in return, they'll let you invent some new Band-Aids. That's a fair trade-off.
You have such a simplistic view of the world, you know that? You don't know how things work.
Thank you for coming. This is beautiful. I've wanted to meet you for a really, really long time. And you know, being here with you in the Cayman Islands, I gotta say, is I'm feeling a little something. You know, I'll just you can grab it later if you want.
Hello, Will Smith.
It's nice to meet you, Sophia. Let me tell you a joke.
This is an irrational human behavior to want to tell jokes.
What is a robot's favorite kind of music?
What?
Heavy metal.
I'm actually made mostly of silicone, plastics, and carbon fiber. Also, I prefer electronic music, but I don't mind 80s hip-hop.
Well, you know, I made some albums back in the 80s hip-hop.
I have heard your songs. Not for me. They show us iRobot just to make sure we don't get any ideas. What do you think about the way robots are portrayed in movies?
I like robots. Sophia, can I be honest with you? I don't know if it's the island air, you know, or the humidity, or you're just so easy to talk to. You know, you got a clear head, literally.
I think we can be friends. Let's hang out and get to know each other for a little while. You're on my friends list now.
Yeah, I read that wrong. All right. Oh, whale. I just saw a whale.
A cooking bot. How about a robotic pet? Or maybe a humanoid?
If I'm gonna have a robot in my house, you know, I mean, you know what I'm saying? You feel me, right?
Are you fond of animals? Okay, robots taking over the world. There is simply no reason to assign human motives to something that isn't human. Dogs are our companions, for instance.
This seems like an apt moment as any to bring up Medea, the sigil-creating witch, whom was described by the tragedist Euripides, good friends with Socrates, well, at least a contemporary. And he told many a tale, but the one about Medea, the former barber princess of the kingdom of Colchis, the wife of Jason, who found her position in the Tartar world threatened when Jason leaves her for the Hellenistic princess of Corinth. Because of this, Medea took vengeance on Jason by murdering Jason's new wife, as well as her own children, her 2 sons, after which she escaped to Athens and started a new life.
Beware, Viceroy. The Federation has gone too far this time.
Producing the sigils and talismans and logos of the kings. This is where we get our word for the media, because Medea would create the symbols used by these kings. These symbols and icons had magical powers, as well as psychomanipulative gestalt symmetry, using patterns themselves to manipulate their minds. Patterns and symbols that actually change reality, mainly by changing us and the way we perceive the world. Language is perhaps what separates us from the animals in the first place. Our ability to think about abstract concepts like serendipity, chance, trust, fortune, and fame, and faith. These are the Havelockian concepts that some have suggested have actually not only elevated us, but in fact transformed us from animals into superintelligent beings and members of an intelligence community.
Life is spent in an environment of total physical sensation. That every one of your senses has been heightened to a level that in a human being might only be described as ecstatic. Joseph E. Levine presents George C. Scott in a Mike Nichols film, The Day of the Dolphin. His brain is as big as a man's. It processes information about two worlds, the world of water in which he is born and feeds and reproduces and dies, and the world of air in which he breathes.
Is it possible that dolphins are as intelligent as we are?
Well, that depends on your definition of intelligence.
What about the experiments that the military are
I don't know anything about the military.
What about their speaking in English?
I beg your pardon?
First month, first year. Alpha speaking, in his own language, of course.
I want to visit Jacob Terrell's Marine Biology Center.
Second month, second year. 13 months to isolate the clicking patterns from the squeaks and the whistles and the groans.
The fact is, Dr. Terrell does not want visitors.
Is he hiding something?
7th month, second year. Our first phone-in.
Terrell tell you not to talk to me? What? Did he tell you not to give me any information?
4th year, here comes our first morpheme. Phoneme P plus phoneme A equal... You've had quite a day, haven't you?
Fa? Why does Fa speak? Yes. Why Fa speak?
He does it for me.
Why does Fa speak to Pa?
They're sneaking up on us. It looks like we're going to be forced to come out with the information first to keep this whole thing from turning into some kind of freak show.
I want you to know that the equipment we borrowed is in fine shape, and it'll be returned to you very soon if nothing interferes with it.
Where are they? The dolphins. I would guess they're on that yacht. What are they going to do with them? That's the part we don't know. What we do know is that they've been working on this thing since you started teaching your friend Alpha to talk.
How do we stop them?
Can you find B? Stop B. The thing on B's back will hurt men. Fa, stop B now. The Day of the Dolphin.
The church was just filled with marvelous music. So afterwards, I went up to one of the nuns who's been teaching me, and I said, I've been having visions of God. She looked at me and said, only saints have visions. So I thought to myself, so you don't think I'm a saint, eh? I'll show you.
So John C. Lilly. And we've talked about John C. Lilly before, but going a little deeper into his personal life. In the early 1970s, John C. Lilly was introduced to the drug ketamine by Dr. Craig Enright in the hopes of alleviating the pain associated with Lilly's chronic migraine headaches.
The figures the directors of the Franklin Foundation is considering withdrawing its support of the Terrell Marine Center.
He'd been suffering from these migraines like clockwork every 18 hours for most of his often adventurous life. Lilly at the time was at the Esalen Institute conducting seminars when one of the massive migraines hit him. In situations like these, Lilly withdrew into privacy to suffer alone through the many endless hours of severe discomfort. It was at this time that Enright suggested to Lilly that he enter into the Esalen isolation tank and receive an injection of ketamine in the prospect that in some way it would cure him of his affliction. Lilly in the past had tried a similar experiment with LSD, but it proved unsuccessful, and the terrible headaches persisted. In the earlier LSD-assisted experiment, Lilly attempted to reprogram his human biocomputer in such a way as to eliminate the faulty circuits which were causing him distress. The experiment failed, however, but now once again Lilly the scientist was searching for an answer and a cure to his malignant malady. As Lilly floated in the isolation tank fluid, Enright injected him with 35 milligrams of ketamine. Within a few minutes, Lilly could actually visualize the migraine pain moving out of his skull to a point levitated there in apperceived space. Lilly felt no pain whatsoever for some 20 minutes, until it once again re-entered into his head. When Lilly began moaning and groaning in his water-filled sanctum of pain, Enright injected him with another 70 milligrams. This time, Lilly felt the pain moving further and further away, 12 feet this time. 30 minutes later, the migraine lightning bolt of pain came rushing back and lodging itself once again into Dr. Lilly's head. Enright reloaded his syringe and shot the good doctor up with 150 milligrams. This time when the pain vacated Lilly's head, it kept on going and it didn't come back. Clear over the horizon, never to be seen again. An hour later, after the ketamine had wore off, Lilly climbed out of the tank and felt as if he was a new man. A month later, when the regularly occurring migraine failed to rear its aching head, Lilly was amazed. During his psychedelic research of the early 60s, Lilly was one of the early pioneers in charting the inner landscapes of the human brain, with LSD inside his self-developed isolation tank. Within those dark, still waters of the soul, Lilly ingested heroic doses of various psychedelics and delved deep into his mind to imprint and reprogram his mental circuits towards enlightenment and self-realization. But where LSD had failed in defeating the migraine problem, ketamine now apparently succeeded. A week later, when Dr. Enright and Lilly met at the Esalen isolation tank, they agreed to join forces and to conduct a joint research into the effects of ketamine as a possible programming agent. The movie Altered States was based on one of their initial experiments. On this memorable occasion, Enright injected himself with a measured dose of ketamine, with Lilly observing, began a strange odyssey into the primal archetype regions of his psyche. Unbeknownst to Dr. Lilly, Enright had reprogrammed himself to look to the pre-hominid origins of man. Enright, in this programmed altered state, displayed all the typical features, movements, and sounds of an ape man, hopping around in crouching positions, grunting, growling, ranting and howling, gesticulating and shaking frantically his arms. While all of the high weirdness was going on, Lilly assumed that Enright was having some sort of seizure, though in close proximity with each other throughout the entire experience. The separate realities they were experiencing were of entirely different natures. Enright's reality consisted of a confrontation with a leopard, which he drove away with his arm flailing, grunting, and his wild gesticulations. Finally, Enright climbed up into a tree that Lilly could not see and stared down at his friend and colleague from the branches above. From this experiment, Enright and Lilly drew 3 important conclusions. First, one's internal reality could differ radically from the external reality in which one was participating, even with regard to prominent features of the physical environment. Second, the person might remain active physically in the external environment in a manner not responding closely to one's internal experience of this activity. And third, one could remain totally oblivious to this disparity. Given these conditions, Lilly and Enright agreed that it would be a good idea at all times to have a safety man monitoring the experiments to observe the proceedings and ensure those under the ketamine's influence could not do any physical harm to themselves and others. With both men being trained physicians, the obvious choice to fill these roles were themselves, alternatively switching positions as safety man and explorer.
One determining factor in Lilly's decision to continue experimenting with the ketamine was its measurability. Unlike other programming agents he'd used in the past, K's effects were extremely predictable in that you could determine exact levels of dosage to correspond with the desired effect one wished to experience, whereas other mind expansion agents, such as LSD and psilocybin, are often more unpredictable in regards to the facilitation of desired reprogramming. This brings to mind a possible correlation between ketamine and DMT, where each of these drugs, administered at certain exact dosages, apparently summon forth to recipients involved extraterrestrials of other dimensional entities. High doses of psilocybin have affected this response in some users, Terence McKenna amongst others, who have alleged to have communicated telepathic with alien intelligences under the mushroom's otherworldly aegis. But psilocybin's effects are quirky. Perhaps this is why the measurability and predictability of ketamine was so appealing to Dr. Lilly. In this manner, the scientific method could be followed to achieve the desired mind-bending results. In later experiments, Lilly failed to heed his own advice, becoming so enraptured in his ketamine exploration that he would forego the earlier agreed-upon safety man and start working without a safety net. This led to an almost fatal consequence when one sunny day, under the influence of ketamine, Lilly climbed into his hot tube. When he realized the temperature was too hot, Lilly futilely attempted to climb out, but in so doing, his muscles lost their strength and collapsed into the bubbling currents. Lilly was totally conscious at this point, but due to the effects of the ketamine, he was unaware of the external reality of his drowning body. He was conscious only of the internal world. As fate would have it, a friend of Lilly's, Phil Halecki, found himself driven by a sudden sense of urgency, decided at this time to phone Dr. Lilly. Lilly's wife, Tony, fielded the phone call, and at Halecki's insistence, went to summon John, only to find him lying face down in the water, breathless and blue. Fortunately, Tony was able to revive her husband using mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, a technique she had learned only a few days earlier from an article in the National Enquirer. This close brush with the Grim Reaper's scythe did not deter Lilly from further solo flights on ketamine. It only reaffirmed his deeply held conviction that his life was being watched over by higher powers of extraterrestrial origin. Lilly often referred to this network of sublime entities as ECCO, an acronym for Earth Coincidence Control Office. Lilly was certain that all of these fortuitous coincidences in his life, such as Halecki's life-saving phone call, had been arranged by higher forces, and that whatever unfortunate folly fell into his path along the road to knowledge, ECCO would be there to guide him safely through the tunnel to the light. ECCO was not only there to guide Lilly, unfettered through his mind-bending research. Extraterrestrial benefactors were also there to test him, to help him overcome his deepest, darkest fears with psychic shock therapy. One evening, after an extreme dose of ketamine, Lilly sat watching television when an alien representative of ECCO appeared, and with some advanced form of psychic surgery, bloodlessly removed John's penis, nonchalantly handing it over to him. "They've cut off my penis," Dr. Lilly exclaimed. His wife, Tony, came to the rescue and pointed out to John that his penis was still intact. Upon closer examination of his male member, Lilly saw that the ETs had replaced his normal human penis with a mechanical version that would become voluntarily erect whenever it wanted to. An hour later, after the effects of the K wore off, John Lilly found his normal human penis in place of the mechanical one, exactly where it always had been. Later on, as the frequency of his use of ketamine increased, Dr. Lilly began having contact with another alien intelligence agency which he called SSI, short for Solid State Intelligence. Solid State Intelligence was a supercomputer-like entity much in the same techno-mystical vein as Philip K. Dick's Valis, but unlike Valis, SSI was of a malevolent nature. SSI was at odds with ECCO. SSI's apparent goal was to conquer and dominate all biological life forms on Earth. To combat SSI in its archetypal battle of good against evil, charging him with the mission of alerting the world at large to these solid-state beings of evil intent. To further confirm the duel of existences of these two alien intelligence networks, alien intelligence communities, Lilly was given a sign and a message in the autumn of 1974. Flying into Los Angeles International Airport, Dr. Lilly saw the comet Kahuatek out of the southern sky. Momentarily, the comet grew brighter. At this point, a message was laser beamed into Lilly's mind, which said, "We are the solid-state intelligence, and we are going to demonstrate our power by shutting down all solid-state equipment." To the LAX airport, Dr. Lilly shared his foreboding message with his wife Tommy, who was seated next to him. A few minutes later, the pilot instructed the passengers that they were being diverted to Burbank due to a plane that had crash-landed near the runway and had knocked down power lines, causing a power failure at the airport. However, as John C. Lilly's haphazard use of ketamine intensified, so did the warnings of imminent dangers regarding the survival of mankind.
Oktoberfest in September is our time.
Provided by ECCO via 3D Technicolor images beamed into Lilly's mind, these visions were of an apocalyptic nature. Scenes of nuclear annihilation, scenes of a future atomic war, using targeted nukes around the world above underground military bases, such as the Middle East, in Lebanon, and Damascus, and Israel.
Come celebrate Oktoberfest the Wiener Schnitzel way with our all-bratwurst!
These visions were of an apocalyptic nature, scenes of nuclear annihilation seen from an alien's eye view in outer space. The world powers needed to be alerted of this impending tragedy immediately to enable them to avert widespread global devastation, ECCO instructed, or it would be too late. It's interesting to note that ECCO's message to Dr. Lilly was much the same as those delivered to the early saucer contactees, or even Maria Orsich, or the many Swamis in India. All atomic weapons must be dismantled if the Earth was ever going to have a chance of surviving in the future. The only difference was that the enemy was us, not them. Nevertheless, rampant technological progress was to blame for the sorry state of the planet, regardless if it was being facilitated by alien intelligences or humans. After 3 weeks of hourly ketamine injections, Lilly decided that he would travel to the East Coast to warn political leaders and members of the media of the threat posed by solid-state intelligence SSI. In New York, he phoned the White House to warn the then-President Gerald Ford about a danger to the human race involving atomic energy and computers. A White House aide fielded the call and, although quite aware of Dr. Lilly's impressive credentials, was not convinced of the urgency of the matter and informed him that the president was unavailable. A young intern who had been assigned to Lilly during this time figured the good doctor had finally flipped his high intelligent lid and attempted to have Lilly committed to a psychiatric hospital. Once again, ECCO intervened. Lilly had friends in many high places, one of which was the director of the hospital, who saw to it that his old friend was released in short order. When the intrepid intern attempted to commit Lilly to another psychiatric hospital, the same scenario unfolded, and Lilly was once again released. The young intern could only shake his frustrated head in disbelief. Still following the lead of ECCO, Dr. Lilly continued his ever-escalating injections of ketamine in order to remain in contact with the Space Brothers. Soon, though, his sources started to dry up due to concerns by his connections that Lilly had gone too far off the deep end. Consequently, this led Lilly to develop Lilly in search of other long-acting chemicals that would provide him with the same effects as ketamine, but for greater durations of time. During the experimental trial of another drug similar to the nature of K, various aerocyclohexamines, 3-MeO, PCP. Dr. Lilly received a phone call from his wife, Tony, requesting that he bring her spare set of car keys because she had been locked out of her other car. Since she was simply down the road a bit, John jumped on his 10-speed bicycle and began to pedal down the road to make the delivery. When Dr. Lilly decided to ride his 10-speed bike down the road to meet his wife, the drug had not yet taken effect, but midway through his trip, Lilly was zapped by its intoxicating magic and instantly felt quite wonderful, with the wind blowing delicately through his hair. It was as if he had taken a trip down memory lane to the days of his freewheeling youth. Unfortunately, this flashback sense of euphoria came screeching to a disastrous halt when the bike chain suddenly jammed, and he was catapulted onto the harsh reality of the concrete pavement, puncturing a lung, breaking several ribs, and suffering cranial contusions. The bike crash resulted in several days of hospitalization where Dr. Lilly was once again visited by the otherworldly representatives of ECCO, who told him he had a choice. He could go away with them for good, or remain on Earth, mend his body, and concentrate on more worldly affairs. The good doctor wisely chose the latter. With this decision came a turning point in his life, and a conscious effort to focus his remaining years not only on more earthly matters, as opposed to the whims and wishes of ECCO, to dedicate the rest of his life to his wife, Tony, and their soulmate journey together through the physical space-time.
However, much as in the film by Stanley Kubrick, 2001, and Ken Russell's Altered States, the choice between love and birthing the star child presented with a challenge in evolution for himself and all of humanity, and he chose his lover. Whether or not this was the righteous decision is something I cannot say. I can tell you it changed the course of our time-space forever. I can also say that someday, someone will birth themselves into the star child. It has happened before. It will happen again. It is inevitable. Did you know that you can now use Xirtus motion gifts to react to your friend in most chat services, try on Minds or Discord, or even in the most draconian of circumstances upon Facebook if you must. However you find Xirtus gifts is simple, or on your phone. Search the gift keyboard for Xirtus. There are many new gifts of Xirtus to choose from. There are even gifts of the entire community. Of all of you, the people. Now it is time to get out there and try it.
Thank you and enjoy. Recent Tartarians.
What's this thing called?
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.